Well, transcendence simply means going beyond.
Mm-hmm.
And beyond the personality that identifies as a younger sibling, this and that relationship, or this and that family member, there's none of that. There's just, love, bliss, peace, being. So the one who has a brother is the illusory self that exists in this incarnation. And that relationship exists in this incarnation. Now, that might, because of the length of the relationship and the nature of it, become so ingrained that the tendency to identify with a certain behavior or personality structure continues in forming the personality of the next life. And we could call that karma, but it's actually not. It's more correctly called the vasanas, an impression in the subtle body, in this case in the causal body. It can produce any kind of bias in the next life's personality. And in the next life, where you have this tendency, but you don't have the object or reason for it, it's easier to transcend it because it's not caught up in an actual game. It's just a behavioral habit or tendency, character trait, so to speak. Well, it's pointless. And because it's pointless and disconnected, it's easier to realize it's not you. And in that realization, you have what we can say transcended, gone beyond the pattern. It's not a realization of, it's rather freedom from. A freedom from believing you are this or that. It's also important to be aware of the difference between transcending and transforming. When you transform it, you're still in it, but you're changing it to something more appropriate or meaningful or mature or whatever you want to call it. But if you transcend it, you just leave it, fucked up and everything, and abide in a purer, freer state of consciousness. And from that point, it then becomes much easier to transform the inappropriate behavior patterns. But people do it the other way around. They want to transform themselves into enlightened beings, but they should transcend themselves into their natural enlightened state and then transform. You cannot transform yourself into an enlightened being, because anything that can transform is within duality, in the relative, and the changing game can go on forever. And actually has been going on for a pretty long time for all of us. So now's the time to end that and step out and be free and get the game over with. So the next question, logically, is who's going to get free? And the simple answer is nobody, because the freedom is already there. You just don't get it because you're so engrossed in that which transforms that you think you have to transform yourself from a bound individual to a free individual. But it's a dream, or rather a nightmare. That which can be bound is a fantasy, a construct, a play of consciousness. Just get out of it. Leave it alone. It's crap. And once you're out of it, it'll begin to disintegrate by itself. It's called spiritual bypassing. And you use your spirituality to avoid or ignore or repress issues in the psyche that should be addressed. So you can't just ignore the ignorant self. There has to be transformation alongside of the transcendence. They support each other. It's my experience, you can't just one over the other. You have to have primarily transcendence supported by some degree of transformation. That works the best. You have to transform into a person who can uphold in the physical universe a continuous awareness of that which does not transform, which is unmanifest and therefore cannot transform constantly. And then, interestingly, once you get that level of enlightenment, that you've realized yourself is the non-transforming, unmanifest pure being, then the next kind of sadhana is all about transformation down to a physical cellular level, so that the physical body becomes an embodiment of that ultimate bliss void. So that which transforms becomes suffused with that which does not transform. And it's very, very difficult to put into words, and it's very paradoxical. But believe me, this is what goes on. And this balance between what I call transformation and transcendent is extremely important.